In the last few lessons, we have seen how CSS considers the HTML elements as boxes. Now, we will learn how these boxes are displayed in our web page using the display property. So early on in the HTML section, we have talked about how some elements are by default inline or by default block. Using the display property, you can make any element inline or block even if by default they are not inline or block. The three possible values you can use to set the display property to are inline, block, and inline block. So let's talk about each of them in detail using examples. Here I have opened a new HTML document. And inside the body element, let's give some h1 headings. Hello world. And let's add another one. I am heading. Let's style them. Give them a background color, aqua, and then a border of 5 pixels, solid black color. Let's save it. So you can see how by default they are block level elements, the headings. They take up the entire line of space and each heading starts in a new line. So now let's add some spans in our HTML doc. Span. And then span. And then let's do another one. Let's give them random text. Save it. Now let's style each of the span. Give them a background color. Light blue. And then a border. Thin. Solid. Black. So you can see these spans by default are inline. They only take up the amount of space needed to display. These two spans share the space together. So now we can change this behavior of these elements using the display property. Let's make the heading elements inline. Display inline. Now you can see that these previously blocked elements are now inline elements, just like these spans. And for the span, let's make them block. Sorry. Display of block. Save it. Yeah, here you go. So these spans are now behaving like block elements. They're taking up the entire line of space, and the first span has pushed the second span onto the next line. So these are not the only difference between the block and the inline. Now that we know properties like padding, margin, width, and height, we can further explore the difference. So let's see how these block level and inline elements behave when we give them margin, padding, and width and height. So first, let's remove these. And also these styles here. Inside the body element, let's write a paragraph. And somewhere inside the paragraph, I will give a span. And height I am a span. So I'm going to style this span so it's more visible. You can't see where exactly it is right now. So give them a background color, aqua, and then a border, medium, solid, black color. Let's save it and see. Yeah, here goes our span here. So the span is the inline element. So now let's use the width property, width and height property in this span. So width, let's give a width of 100 pixels and a height of 100 pixels. Let's save it and see what happens. Well, you can see nothing happens. The width and height of the span didn't increase. Why? Because in an inline element, the width and height property are ignored. Let's try padding. Let's give a padding of 10 pixels. And let's give 20 pixels. Let's save it. Well, you can see the padding worked. The 20 pixel of padding is added in all the 4 sides, but the vertical padding, the padding top and the padding bottom are overlapping with the text of the paragraph, isn't it? The text is not respecting the vertical padding space, whereas the horizontal padding is working perfectly. The text at the sides have moved to the side, so the horizontal padding, the padding left and right, can have their own space. So only the vertical padding is not working properly. The text are not respecting the padding. Well, let's try merging and see. So let's give a margin of 20 pixels also. See, the same thing happened to margin. The horizontal margin worked, but the vertical margin didn't work. There is no vertical margin, 20 pixel margin in the span. So why did it happen? It is because in inline elements, the width and height are ignored, but the margin and padding push elements away horizontally but not vertically. So here, the margin and padding horizontally, it pushed the text away but not vertically. So now let's compare this behavior with the block level elements. So in here at the top, I'm adding a heading, H1 heading. Hello world. And now let's style this heading. Give them a background color of red and save it. So block H1 is a block level. So when I give a width of 200 pixels and a height of 200 pixels, also let's see what happens to this block level element. Yeah, so the height and the width property worked for the block. The height and width is reduced to 200 pixels. So now let's try padding. Padding to 30 pixels. Well, the padding also worked in all the sides. 30 pixels of padding is added in all the 4 sides. Now let's try the margin property. And margin, let's give a margin of 20 pixels. Save it. So the margin is also added here. 20 pixel of margin is added in all the 4 sides. Let's give 40 so that it's more visible. So yeah, 40% of space is added in all the 4 sides. So in block level elements, the width, height, padding, and margin are all respected. Now let's see the inline block, the third value of the display property. So the inline block combines the inline features and the block features. So inline block element appears next to each other just like inline elements, but the width, height, and padding and margin are respected just like the block elements. So now let's see the examples. So in my HTML document, I will add some divs. Let's add 3 divs. And let's style them. Div. Give them a background color of this brown and a border of thin solid black. Let's save it. Okay, we haven't specified any width of the divs because we didn't add any text also inside the div, so nothing is pretty visible. Only the border is visible. So let's give a width of 200 pixels and also give a height of 200 pixels. So we'll have a square. So here we got our 3 divs with the background color of brown. So divs are by default block elements, so that's why these 3 are appearing in 3 different lines, 3 different blocks. So now let's change its display to inline block and see what happens. Let's save it. Well, you can see they are appearing in the same line. So just like inline elements, they share space, but the block elements, the width and height property is also working. So if I give margin, let's see if it works. Margin of 30 pixels to each of them. Well, you can see 30 pixels of margin is also applied to 3 of the divs, and the padding will also work. So inline block behaves like inline elements. Width, height, and padding and margin are respected. And yeah.